Guys, so I'd like to finish my testimony. If you haven't seen the beginning of it, you can check on the channel and watch it from the beginning. It's in a couple different videos. But before I do, I want to talk to you a little bit about narcissism and narcissistic mothers. I think it's important because I ended up really making a lot of mistakes, and it was based on me allowing my mother to have so much influence in my family dynamic, in my situation with my husband, and the way that I was raising my kids. I really made a lot of bad judgment calls, and part of that was because I was a child of a narcissist. She's a Jezebel for my spiritual brothers and sisters out there, and so I kind of wanted to explain to you, like, if you're not sure that your mom is a narcissist or your dad is narcissistic, I kind of want to give you some examples of what it was like to grow up with them, and that way maybe something will ring true for you and then it'll push you over. But if you're watching this and if the tagline for the narcissism drew your eye, it's, you know, that something weird's going on. So maybe not sure what it is exactly, but I want to tell you from the get-go, you're not crazy. What you're dealing with is an emotional sadist, and they can be physically violent and physically sadistic too, but I'm just going to focus on the emotional sadist, the Jezebel, the narcissist, the classic narcissist. So mine was a covert narcissist, my mother, and that means is that she had the facade of somebody who, well, she was the daughter of a minister, of a man of God, my minister, who taught me everything that I know, who gave me my spiritual foundation. That was her dad. And so she was very well behaved in front of people who would care about something like that. So when we would go to church, we went to church every Sunday. And she would even get there early. She loved getting there early. She loved showing everybody that she was the one cleaning and volunteering and bringing food and cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning the hall, cleaning, just very helpful. And she was helpful. She did do all those things. But if she could get away with it, she would have somebody else do that for her. Like, she would volunteer for it, and then she'd grab somebody. She'd mostly grab my adopted sister and have my adopted sister actually do all the work, like actually clean the bathroom and actually do the stuff. She didn't mind doing some of the chores, like she wouldn't mind grocery shopping, but then she wouldn't want to unload the groceries. Somebody else could do that. So she sort of picked and chose whatever she liked to do, but she was always volunteering. And then behind the scenes, she could just have somebody else do the yucky stuff that she didn't want to do. So if you notice that your mom loves to go to church, but she's so mean at home, very, very mean at home, that's a huge trigger. I would say the number one trigger for you should be, do you fit in one of the categories? Because narcissistic mothers have categories for their children. She has roles that she assigns to them. So if there are girls, and they're all girls, if she only has girls or only has one child, if she only has one child, then I think that normally what they do, and I'm not an expert by any stretch of the imagination, what they do, I'm just speaking from experience, and I'm speaking from educational videos that I've seen other people giving their testimony and how they got through dealing with toxic people like narcissists. But I would say that there's definitely, once you start digging into it, you can see that there are categories that she places her kids in. They have certain rules. So if for example, my family situation, we had 3 kids. There was me, who was the oldest, there was my brother, who was in the middle, and there was my sister, who was the youngest. And my brother was the golden child. And I think, based on everything that I've seen in hours and hours and hours of testimony from people, I think that if there's only one boy, that boy automatically is the mother's golden child. And there's something very sick and twisted called a son husband, which I've only heard. I've heard one person, Ollie. I can't think of the name of his resistance. So his name is Ollie, and he's with Narcissistic Resistance, I think is the name of the channel. I'll look it up and then I'll post it below. But he was the one who, that's the first person that I ever heard talk about a son husband, and he was dead on. So what a son husband is the narcissistic mother, the Jezebel. She has her son, and she just sort of coddles him. She never lets him get in trouble for anything, because he can do no wrong. And if he does something minor, she makes like a big deal about how awesome it is. But if he does something wrong, she's very quick to dismiss it. It's nothing wrong. If anybody else points it out, they're just jealous of him. You shouldn't be so jealous of your brother. An example of the favoritism would be something like, for me, my curfew at 17 was 10 p.m. And so I could drive home, have my friend drop me off at 10, like I could pull up to the house at 10 o'clock, then say bye to my friend, say bye guys, physically walk through the door at like 10:02 or 10:03, and I would be grounded because I was late. And what was I doing in that car? And, she'd be like, what were you doing? Girls like that don't sit in cars. And I'm like, what are you talking? Like, what do you think I'm doing in our driveway at 10 o'clock with the porch light on and the garage lights on and, all these people in the car? Like, what is it that you think I'm doing? And so that would be my response. As soon as I would walk in, I would just I'd expect, like I'd have to brace myself to walk in, because they would and then my mom would come and she would smell my clothes, and she would just invade my space. And I'm not telling parents not to check on their kids. Obviously, like, our home was a smoke-free home. If I walked in smoking, you would smell it. If I smelled like alcohol, you would smell it. But I'm saying there's a way to check that's not so creepy. But yeah, so that would be my experience coming home. And if I would ask to go out, I could go out, but I get a long lecture and I'd have to be home on time, and I might only be able to go out for 45 minutes or, an hour, but like there was definitely hard boundaries on what I could do. And my sister would get a lot of, like, if she wanted to go out with her friends, it would be more of like snide comments, like my little sister. She was the emotional punching bag of the family, and so she would get comments like putting her down and thinking, like, what does she have to offer? Like, she doesn't even have any friends. Like, where are you going to go? You don't have any friends. So my mom never said anything like that to me, ever. But she did to my little sister, and she never did it to my sister in front of me. So narcissists and Jezebels are very sneaky. I would say that's like their trademark, is how deceptive they are. And so my sister would be, she just asked a simple question, can she go out with her friends? And then all of a sudden it's like, you don't have friends. Oh, that girl doesn't like you. Or, oh, that one friend, you think she likes you, but didn't you see that she was like giving you, she's always trying to give you candy because she wants to make you fat. Your friend wants to make you fat. And my sister would hear things like that her friend that she liked and wanted to hang out with, my mom would have to poison that and say, well, the only reason she's sharing her snacks with you is because she wants you to get fat, because she's jealous of you. And I don't know why she's jealous of you, because you're looking kind of pudgy, but it's because you keep taking her candy. Like, don't be dumb. So that's what my sister would get. I would get the hard boundaries. And then my brother would be 15 years old, 16 years old. He would be out past curfew, and he would have a later curfew than me. even though I was 17, he would have a later curfew. And if you brought that up to my mom, she'd be like, oh, mind your own business. Like, that's your brother, and boys are different, and girls can get in trouble, but boys, you know, it's different. So he had a later curfew than mine. So his curfew, I think, was midnight. Mine was 10. And then he didn't even keep the midnight curfew. Like, he would come in at like 2 or 3 in the morning. And when he did walk in, he'd walk in smelling of cigarettes because he smoked. I didn't smoke, and nobody in our house smoked, so you could smell it as soon as my brother walked in. And his clothes smelled like cigarettes, and he'd be drinking. And my mom would be like, "Hi, Miko, finally you're home. I was so worried. Like, are you okay? Is everything okay?" And he'd be like, "Oh yeah, Mom, sorry. I just like lost track of time." She was like, "Oh, I was so worried." And he's like, "No, I'm fine, Mom, I'm fine." And she's like, "Did you have fun? You know, did you have fun?" And he'd say, "Yeah, I had fun. It was okay. It was all right." She's like, "Are you hungry?" 1 second. So my little 3-year-olds, they're obsessed with dum-dums, the little lollipops. So my mom would start saying to him, like, "Well, did you eat something?" And he'd be like, "No, I'm so hungry." And she's like, "Why didn't you eat? I told you to eat before you left." And then he'd be like, "Well, I did eat. Remember, Mom, I ate dinner before I left." And she's like, "Oh yeah, but you're still hungry. I told you to eat a second portion." And he goes, "I know, I should have listened to you, Mom." And he's like, "I sure am hungry, Mom. I sure am hungry." So he'd be like 16 years old and like rubbing his belly. And she'd be like, "Oh, you should." She's like, "Okay, well, just 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes." And then she'd run to the kitchen and she'd make him breakfast, like a 3 o'clock in the morning breakfast. She'd make him some eggs, and she'd make him a beautiful plate. And then he would come out. He'd be like, "Oh, gee, Mom, this looks great. Thanks, Mom. Thanks." And then she'd be all happy, like she checked the box of being a good mom. She checked the box, like preparing him his meal and worrying about him. So like a normal person would see that and say, well, actually a good mom would be making sure your 16-year-old kid's not out at 2 o'clock in the morning. A good mom would actually correct him for smoking instead of pretending that he wasn't smoking. She would smell it, and she couldn't deny the smell of it. She hated cigarettes. But she would, when she'd smell it on him, when she didn't sniff him, she would just be like, "Here, give me your clothes. Like, take this off. I'm going to wash it for you. Oh, your friends are so awful. I'm telling you, those friends of yours, and they're smoking." So she wouldn't even ask him to justify himself or try to defend himself. Like, she automatically gave him the out. Like, you don't have to explain the cigarette smoke. I already know it's your friends. And when he walked in late, she's not even saying, there's no mention of him breaking curfew. It's all focused on how worried she is, and how worried she is that her son, she's worried about her son because she's a good mom, and a good mom worries. And no, like, he should have been grounded. He was way past curfew, and why even have a curfew if you're not going to enforce it? So she was encouraging him to just kind of break rules. Rules didn't apply to him. It didn't matter. Like, if I was hungry at 3 o'clock in the morning, she's not going to make me anything for me. If I'm 3 minutes late, she's all over that. She doesn't care if I'm technically in the driveway and home and she can see me. I'm still late. So these narcissistic mothers, the reason I'm going to talk about it is because I think that if you are genuinely seeking God, if you are trying to develop a relationship with Jesus Christ, these mothers give you so much to be bitter about. So much to be bitter about, because the unfairness and the hypocriticalness, like for example, I could have grown up and thought like all Christians are hypocrites, because here is my mom who is wearing long skirts and no makeup and dressed super conservative and going to church every Sunday. Here she is, years down the line, thrashing me, being emotionally just crazy cruel, and then going to church, and then going to go and pray. And it's like, wait, you just came through here like a tornado, and now you're going to go pray? Or you just came out, that was the worst, when she came out of this so-called prayer. And for my spiritual brothers and sisters out there, I do think she was praying. I just don't think she was praying to our Lord. These women do so much damage, and these men, because Jezebel doesn't have to be a woman, they do so much damage because they just break hearts. They really do. They break hearts. They lie, and they make people feel bad about themselves. They let children see that some kids get nice things and other kids aren't worthy of that, or they are made to believe that they're not worthy of that. They put undue pressure on children to be adult-like, and take over their responsibilities. So like my brother was the golden child. My sister was the scapegoat. She was the punching bag. Everything that my mom was like frustrated about, my sister got it, and she got it physical too, but never in front of people. Never in front of people. And so if your mom is emotionally beating you or actually slapping you and doing those things, but nobody sees you, like sees her do it, that's by design. And I guarantee you she's going around telling everybody that you're crazy, because we grew up listening to my mom call my sister hysterical all the time and exaggerating. Oh, you're always exaggerating. Oh, you're always exaggerating. So you get labeled, if you are the scapegoat child, the black sheep, scapegoat, punching bag, you get labeled as a liar. And that's by design to discredit you, so that if you ever do get the nerve to tell people what they're doing, nobody will believe you. So it's premeditated evil. And so my sister was that. My brother was the golden child. He could do no wrong. Every excuse made for every misbehavior that he did. And for me, I was the parent. I got assigned the role of taking care of things. So I would be 17 years old and doing taxes for my parents. I would be in kindergarten and, well, first grade. First grade is the first report card that I have seen a report card of, where I had 40 absences for the year. And that would be because every time that I was home, every time I was sick, my mom would go to work and my dad would go to work, and I would stay home by myself, which in the 80s was not that big a deal, I don't think. But even in the 80s, I think, 7 and 8 is pretty young for that. But what added more to it was that every time my sister was sick, she was 4 years younger than me, then I would have to stay home with her too. So if you think about that, an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old is staying home with a 4-year-old while you go to work. And it would be my job to make sure she was okay. Not normal. That's not normal. If my brother was sick, so if I was 8 and she was 4 and sick, and they don't take the kids when they're daycare kids, like when they're sick. So even if I was 9 years old and she's 5. So every time my sister was sick, I had to stay home with her. Every time my brother was sick, I had to stay home with him. And that was just a lot of absences. And I actually like being an 80s kid. 80s kids are pretty resilient. And the school didn't have a problem with it, I guess. I don't know if they called my mom or not, or told her anything, but it didn't change anything. I was going to stay home with them. And it didn't affect us that much because I still got straight A's. But that shouldn't have happened. First of all, it's a safety violation. Like, you can't have children watching children at that age. And second of all, it's just not right. It's her job to call in sick from work to watch my sister. It's not my job to not go to school so I could stay home and watch her because she's sick. So that's just kind of like a little thing. I think that if you're not sure if your mom's a narcissist or not, that's the quickest way, I think, to find out if she is or she isn't, because those categories are pretty hard and fast. And so I would say, like, if there's a boy, it doesn't matter if he's the oldest boy, youngest boy. If there's 2 girls and a boy, that boy's going to be the golden child. And if she only has one child, it's kind of weird. I think those kids get it the worst because they get a little bit of everything. So they never know, like, what's going on. Because the narcissistic moms, like they have like their child that they use to take care of all the adult responsibilities. They have a child that they emotionally thrash. They have a child that they shower with affection and prove what a good mom they are by how they care for you. But they also need a playmate. So my sister was kind of those two roles. So my sister was the one that got slammed with negative feedback all the time and had really low self-esteem. She still does. And she's thankfully, she's married and has a very supportive husband, and he's been wonderful, and she's been kind of putting my mom on the back burner, and he reinforces all the positive things. But my mom just like pushed her down. But then if my mom would have had a fourth child, this fourth child would have been this other category, which is the playmate. So she gets bored very easily, and she needs to be entertained constantly. And one of the favorite things that she likes to do to entertain herself is kind of play puppeteer. So she will play people against each other. So gossip is huge. Gossip, especially with the Jezebel, she gossips, but she does it in a way where it doesn't sound like she's talking bad about somebody. She sounds like she is concerned. So she's concerned about so-and-so, but she doesn't talk to so-and-so about these concerns. She tells everybody about the concerns that she has about this other person. But the concerns are made up. Like she's talking bad about this person and assassinating their character, but she's dressing it up in concern. And then she's gossiping, but it's not gossip because supposedly she's doing it with love, and she's so worried about so-and-so. I'm so worried, but one of these days, all of the blah, 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 blah is going to catch up to her, and I keep telling her, but she won't listen to me. How can I get her to stop doing blah, 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 blah? So she goes and tells people as if she's asking for their guidance, but all she's doing is spewing her venom. And everybody, no one will talk to her, to the person, the subject person, because it's very personal stuff and they shouldn't know. And then a lot of times she's like, but don't tell her I told you because she's going to get mad at me, but I just don't know how to help her. So it's a lot of that. Like if you hear your mom telling you about your sisters and your brothers, like, don't tell her I told you. Don't tell her I told you. Don't tell her I told you. The reason she doesn't want you to tell that she told you is because she's lying, probably. Or she's twisting. So the conversation may have happened, but she's changing. Like maybe one person said it, and then she'll say the other person said it. Yeah, so I would say that those are pretty good indicators, pretty good ways. And so if you only have the one child, then that one child gets a mixture of all of that. So that one child will get lavished with attention, and then 1 second, and then it's sort of like a Jekyll and Hyde thing, and then the mom will come back, and then she'll be cruel and just thrash you, and then she'll come back and be like, even though you're stupid, let's go hang out. And so the playmate part, that's the one that's going to go shopping with you, with the narcissist. She's going to go shopping with her. She's going to watch movies with her. She gets bored. The narcissistic mother gets bored very, very easily. And so if she can't amuse herself with the gossip and the playing puppeteer and like giggling and watching people fight, because that's what she loves to do. She loves to tell one person one thing, one person another, and then watch them have a cat fight. So I would say keep your ears perked up for somebody who says, don't tell her that I told you, but she said this about you. Don't tell her, but she's really jealous of you. Don't tell her, but she's making comments about your boyfriend. Or don't tell her, but I think she doesn't like your husband. And you really need to forgive her. If you have they'll be like, you need to forgive her. If she's playing the saintly one, which was what my mom was, she went to church, but she was wicked. She'd be like, but you need to forgive your sister because even though she is blah, 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 she can't help it. She's always been like that. So we need to be, kind to her. And But then she's thrashing her, and she's saying things to you that if someone told you that your child is ugly, or your sister says that your husband is so, she can't stand your husband, but you need to be nice to her. It's like she gets your emotions all amped up. And maybe if you're nice and calm and you can see through things, you'd be like, yeah, mom, let's like be patient. But that's not what she does. She spins you up. She spins you up. So anyway, so that's what I'm going to say about the narcissistic mothers and how they train you. They train you to accept crazy as part of life. I was 35 years old, and it didn't even cross my mind that I shouldn't have been 8 or 9 watching my little sister. It's just what I did. I'm like, oh, we're 80s kids. That was just the 80s. But I don't know. 4 or 5 is pretty young. And anyway, so try to have a sense of humor about it. I'm going to try to lighten things up because it is a very dark topic. And you go ahead and cry if you need to cry, because I did when I realized how awful my parents were, and how everything was intentional and sabotage and one thing to your face and one to the other. These are people you trust. You love them. You love them. It's your family. But you also have to take care of your spiritual self. You have to not let people like that darken you, sadden you, put their loads on you. Because if you do, then you're not clear, you're overwhelmed, and you can't follow your own spiritual path. You can't check with your spiritual compass because you're too overwhelmed. And they want you in that overwhelmed state. They need you in that overwhelmed state because they have no happiness. They have no joy. The closest that they get to joy is the hee 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 hee, watching people suffer because of their orchestrated lies. And I mean, how good can that really feel? You might feel smart for a second. But in the back of your mind, do you think that they don't know that the only way that they could trick people like that was being a bald-faced liar? I think they don't know. I think they don't know that they're abusing people's trust, and what kind of person does that? I think they know. And they have very, very sad lives. So let them have their sad life. And you just break free of it. Don't let them drag you in with them. So I'm going to try to help you. I'm hoping, like, I'm not an expert. I can tell you about crying, and from when I found out in November until June, I did a good 6-7 months of crying my eyes out, thinking, how can this be? But I watched more and more videos, and it was like, you're my brother. Like, we must have had the same mom. She must have had you locked in the basement somewhere because you're describing my childhood. So it's not something special just to us. It's just part of their sick handbook. So I'm going to try to give you all the cheat sheet stuff so you don't fall for it. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. I hope you find this helpful. I hope this sort of lightens your load a little bit, gives you a little bit of hope to see that it doesn't have to end, like it doesn't have to keep happening over and over again. You're in the middle of a game, but you can get up and walk away from that game whenever you want. There's nothing chaining you to them. So if you're a young viewer, I'm so sorry. But at the same time, you're young and you have to wait until, don't go out in the streets or anything like that. I mean, unless it's really crazy, but even then, like, you have no idea what's out there. So don't be tempted by that, because there's a lot of danger out in the streets. So they might be crazy, but at least they've got the, I don't know, worried about what the neighbors would say to go too far. But if you're a young viewer, I saw a testimony from a girl who was, I think, 21, and she was completely devastated when she was finding out. Another kid was like 16. And so part of me, my heart really broke for them, because the 16-year-old was still living at home. And I kept thinking, like, 2 more years, dude, and then you can get out. And then when you get out, you will never go back to them, because you can see. So it's hard because you're a kid, but then it's good too, because I wish, I didn't know until I was 35. So if I would have found out when I was 16, if I could have identified that, then I could have saved myself a world of hurt. But I didn't find out till I was 35. So that's at least the upside of being young and recognizing your parents are, you know, gross. So yeah, just wait it out. But if you have any questions, anything specific, I know I bounce around a lot. I don't plan these talks. My goal with this channel is to help people learn from my mistakes, help you. You don't need to suffer. I already suffered and went through all these things and was deceived. You don't have to be deceived. I'll give you the cheat sheet notes. And I'm going to talk about a lot of different things, but I hope you found this video useful, helpful. Hope you find some hope in it. And don't forget that you can always, no matter what, whether you know God, don't know God, used to know God, used to go to church, don't go to church, you can always start today. You can always just go somewhere quiet. I would recommend just locking the door, go in there, kneel down, pray, and then just talk to our Father in heaven the way that you would pick up the phone and call your best friend. And He's listening. I guarantee you He's listening. And He can help you. And He can help you way more than I can. But if you are not sure where to go, how to start, if you have any questions about that aspect, if you want to get baptized, let me know, because I do know a man of God. Highly recommend his channel. I'll list information below. My good friend Chris LaSala and BDS in Corsicana, Texas. Highly recommend his channel. And if you need anything, just put the comment in. I'll either know the answer or not know the answer, or maybe can give you a link for somebody that could explain it way better than I can. So anyway, I hope you have a good day. I hope everything tonight was for the honor and the glory of my Lord Jesus Christ. Don't give up, people. Don't give up. And don't lose your laughter. I think God really likes laughter. I think it's good for us. That's why we feel so good when we laugh. So I hope you have a great day, and let me know if you need anything. Bye.